This video is, of course, another one in my Atheist Reads Christian Literature. This one is, of course, A Good Man Lost, A Bad Man Saved by Dr. John Rice. You can get these from the Sword of the Lord. Of course, as I always say, I'm not going to read every bit of it, but, we'll go ahead and do it. The good man lost, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here it is. A good man lost, a bad man saved. And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. Kind of sounds like many Christians you meet, right? 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee, the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus within himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice in the week. I give tithe of all that I possess. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes into heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Luke 18:9-14. When Jesus preached and taught among men on earth, he found that there were many which trusted in themselves, that they were righteous and despised others. And of course, they're also talking about Catholics too. They don't want to mention it. They do try to use that for Catholics too, because many of you know how Catholics, they go to a priest, forgive them sins, as their Bible says, they go and pray to some imaginary person. A priest isn't going to be able to forgive your sins any more than some sky fairy. If you do things that you shouldn't be doing, that's on you. If you preach in America today, he would need to preach it again. The kind of religion which trusts itself and claims a righteous above others was an abomination to the Lord Jesus in Palestine 2 years ago. He hates the same sins as much today. A good man lost. When R.A. Torrey preached on the parable of the Pharisee and the publican, he labeled it a good man lost and a bad man saved. The title is as fitting as it is striking. Let's consider first the good man who was lost. He was really a good man. We have taught to despise the Pharisee, but we must credit this man with this high morality he claimed for himself. Jesus, who told the story, did not deny anything the Pharisees said. Of course not. It's a story. You read Harry Potter. Come on. You think? Come on. You're not going to deny anything he says because it's just a freaking book. We know that Saul of Tarsus, also a Pharisee, when addressing other Hebrew leaders, tells how he was taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous toward God as he all are this day. Paul wrote to the Philippians that he was a Pharisee, touching the righteousness which is the law, blameless, 3:6. Yes, Pharisee went to church. That's in his favor. No man can be either a good citizen of his country or a good example to those about him, or be what he ought to be, who does not avail himself of the opportunity to go to the house of God. That's right. You're not a good person. No matter what you do, you're not a good person if you're not going to church. If you're not saved or you're not going to church, you're not a good person. You cannot say you're a good example to others either. And he went to pray. He was not like the fool who said in his heart, there is no God. For Psalms 14:1. Now, you think about it. That actually I agree with. You would have, at the time the Bible was written, at the time that verse was written, you would have to be a fool to say there was no God. Because, let's face it, you'd be killed. In the 1600s, you say there's no God, you'd be burned alive. 1400s, 1600s. Come on, you'd be a fool to say it. He was not like the callous and indifferent who do not believe in prayer. He was not like the profane soldier who never prays until he's in a foxhole. Or like the godless sailor who never prays until he's adrift on a rubber raft. That's another thing. A lot of these Christians, these theists, Muslims too, they think that atheists, when their life is in danger, they're going to start praying to some imaginary God. Most atheists, actually none of them that I know I've ever heard of, none of them actually ever do. There's no evidence that any of them have. They'll say Voltaire, Darwin, Hitchens, and all these people prayed and all this. They actually believe that everyone actually does believe in God. Some people just want to deny his existence. Kind of like, you're speeding. You say, I'm going to go ahead and break the law. I'm just going to deny that there is any such thing as a cop. It sounds just as stupid. He was no extortioner, one who snatches away. Doubtless he had in mind the wicked publican, who, if he was like others of those crooked Roman tax collectors, ravenously took all he could and was privileged to keep all the surplus after the minimum payment of the government. But this Pharisee was no extortioner, taken by fair means and foul. Nor was he unjust, a general term meaning wicked and righteous. Christ divided all men into two classes when he said that God sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. Matthew 5:45. In that sense, the Pharisee was just. He was classified among the honest people, not thieves. He was law-abiding and no criminal. Neither was he an adulterer. He said he wasn't, and Jesus did not deny it. Of course, it was his story. Gee whiz. And this was a very great virtue. He revered his home. He kept his marriage vows. His wife safely trusted his integrity. He was neither smitten with venereal disease because of licentious living. He never feared the shame of exposure of a secret love or a shameful past. He was an upright, moral man, a good man in the sight of all who knew him. He had a zeal for righteous things. See, this is what gets me, and I've said it in other videos. Okay. These people, a lot of people, they claim, Muslims, Jews, Christians, Hindus, all this stuff. They all claim they want, if their religion has a heaven, they want to go into this heaven. They want to be with their God. Okay. Now, everybody believes, even you got hundreds of denominations. Why doesn't God help them understand the right way to believe? Why doesn't he just come to us all, when we're, and explain to us how we are supposed to believe and worship? Wouldn't that make sense? Instead of a Bible. That's, come on. I even wrote I have a video about it, too. No one's watched it yet, which I can understand why. My videos suck, but, I'll put it in the description if I remember. 1/10 of his money was sacredly given to the support of the priesthood in the house of God. That in itself proves a certain genuineness in his religion, a certain sincerity in heart. We cannot much trust a man, his convictions, when they're not proven by his giving. He fasted twice a week. But the shocking truth is he is given by the Savior, though he was lost. The inference of the parable was that he went down to his house, a poor lost sinner, and when he died, he went to hell. As you'll hear other people, you could go out and murder, rape, do whatever crimes you want, do any immorality you could think of. You'll go to heaven as long as you get saved. And you can live a moral, just life, help people, save people, and all this stuff. You'll go to hell if you don't get saved. And that's considered fair to Christians. He was righteous, was outward, not inward. The Pharisee had not been born again. The Pharisee was a sinner like everybody else. He never killed. Well, you do not steal, you say, but God looks at the heart and you were confident and marks it down as a sin. Basically, thought crimes are a sin. You think about taking something, you like something, that's stealing. You look at a beautiful woman or a man, that's adultery. Thought crimes. You, like the Pharisee, might maintain that you are not an adulterer, but who remember Jesus said, whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. Matthew 5:28. And this is where I want to stop just briefly. I also want to say thank you to you liberal Christians for siding with us more than you do your so-called God and your so-called holy book. Thanks. You have kept the commands of God, and if you've broken one of the commands, you have broken the whole law of God. All the blah, 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 blah. This poor Pharisee, thank God he was not the other man, deceived himself into hell. I pray that you would be not the same wicked and foolish thing. I remember in a tent meeting in Bridgeport, Texas, how a lovely woman of a fine family and character sat in the choir and resisted all those who would urge her to be saved. But one night I said to her, in God's sight you are a sinner. Are you not? She colored and said with some embarrassment, well, in God's sight I may be, but in men's sight I'm just as good as everybody else and better than most. Yeah, I'm sure that actually happened. I have no doubt that hell will be filled with those who obey the laws of the land. A bad man saved. Little is said about the publican. Only one since describes his prayer. And the publican standing afar off would not lift up his head so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God be merciful to me, a sinner. He certainly was a bad man. He frankly confessed, I'm a sinner. In fact, the article used in the Greek is a different article. He is not simply confessing that he's a sinner. He really said, have mercy on me, the sinner. He probably meant that he was the very sinner mentioned by the Pharisee. While the Pharisee thanked God that he was not as other men, even as this publican that was no extortioner, no unrighteous man, no adulterer. The poor publican frankly seemed to confess, I am that very kind of sinner myself. The kind the kind that the Pharisee is now. I have gone about extorting money from others, snatching and confiscating here and there. Under the guise of a tax collector, I am a wicked and righteous man. I'm also an adulterous woman. But we already did that. But the Roman system of taxation. Each tax collector turned in the government the required amount, blah, blah. And this publican, this tax collector, has come to the temple to pray and frankly confess he is a sinner. How many poor people had been robbed by this man who had been made rich by the misery of others? Many times I doubt he had taken the only ox or donkey of some poor man, and he had boldly, in the name of the law, carried out the furniture of a widow. This poor publican very likely was guilty of all the sins which the Pharisee by implication charged him. The Pharisee had turned and glanced toward the wicked publican and prayed, "Thank God I'm not the adulterer," blah, blah, blah. Every man deserved condemnation, deserved hell. This publican did. Yeah. And really, what can you really do in your life to deserve an eternity of burning and torture and torment? I mean, come on. It's because you don't believe in a God without evidence. And how do you know that you're believing the right God? There's so many religions. There's so many denominations. No religion really answers that one. They have apologetics where they dance around it, but they don't really answer it for you. A bad man saved, Lilith. I did that one already. Do you suppose that this ravaging extortionate went about seizing other people's goods brought to the tithes of his income to God like the Pharisee? Not on your life. He did not count himself a steward of God. He had felt the poverty that was wholly unjust. He would not have been forcibly seizing it for the poor. I doubt he had ever bowed his head to thank God for the food at his table. He honestly confessed his sin. There is only one gate through which one may approach God, and that gate is clearly marked for sinners only. Yeah, not a priest, which is very clear. Even in the Bible, that's why I don't get Catholics, but I don't care. That's all the same. It's like argue Star Wars versus Star Trek. Or Grand Theft Auto versus Saints Row, basically. In hotels and public buildings, we see doors marked for employees only. But the way to heaven, the way to peace with God is for sinners only. The gospel of the Bible is a medicine prescribed only for those who are sick with sin. Jesus himself said, "They that behold need not a physician, but they that are sick." Matthew 9:12. The Christian Scientist blatantly declares that there is no such thing as sin. That is an error of moral mind. The martyrs deny the Bible and the teachings of Jesus Christ, saying that we are all children of God by nature and none are essentially wicked, and that all man needs is a little help by laws and schools and labor unions, by soup and soap and security. And the lodges that teach men need only to subdue their passions and develop the capabilities that any man by character can deserve the approval of the grand architect of the universe and dwell forever in the Elysian fields. Also, men do not like to admit they are sinners, but no one was ever saved any other way. You must confess to God you are an undone sinner. You must burn forever in hell, or you must burn forever in hell. God has salvation only for self-confessed sinners. Some years ago, a woman in Chicago heard me preach on the radio broadcast, men's broadcast over radio WJJD from the Grand Opera House. She wrote that she was almost in despair. Other preachers, she said, either had not had time or didn't know how to help her. I wrote her and she came to see me. Sitting in the hotel lobby, she told me of her training in the Bible Institute, how she had prayed the gospel in the streets, professing entire sanctification, how she had been a missionary in the mountains. But strangely, she had seemed to become devil-possessed. Every kind of blasphemy and cursing ran through her mind. Continually, she said, she was tempted to curse God, tempted to go out in the violence. God sent him a million miles away, and she could not find the way to peace. Could I help her? After prayerfully asking a few questions, I said, in the Bible Institute, you are praised for your sweet voice, for your devotion to God. After hearing your testimony, many people told you they wished they could be as consecrated as you were. You took it upon yourself to preach, though the Bible clearly forbids women preaching to mixed congregations. My helping you will depend all together on your answer to this question. Do you realize what a vile sinner you are in God's sight? The poor girl looked at me a moment, then dropped her face in her hands and saw the tears falling between her fingers. A sinner, she said, I am the greatest sinner that ever lived. I ought to be in hell right now. Why? I wonder why God lets me live, to whom he has been so kind, yet who has been so wicked, so vile, so self-willed. Yes, of course I'm a sinner. And I can certainly tell you how to have peace and joy and the whole thing settled happily. We turned together 1 John 1:9. She claimed and received the perfect cleansing and forgiveness promised there to all who confess their sins. The publican had a repentant heart. The publican asked for mercy. You know, like Cain and Abel, they mention, you know, Cain didn't ask for mercy and all that stuff. The publican received instant salvation. And I want to go ahead with a little joke, a little thing I want to add to this. You know, I heard this several years ago in a meeting. Okay. In life, you only have two things to worry about. If you're healthy or if you're sick. If you're healthy, you have nothing to worry about. If you're sick, you only have two things to worry about. Are you going to get better or are you going to get worse? If you're going to get worse, if you're going to get better, you got nothing to worry about. If you're going to get sick, you only got two things to worry about. Are you going to die or are you going to live? If you're going to live, you got nothing to worry about. If you're going to die, you only got two things to worry about. Are you going to go to heaven or are you going to go to hell? If you're going to heaven, you got nothing to worry about. If you're going to go to hell, you won't have time to worry because you're going to be too busy shaking hands with everybody you used to know when you were alive. But for free to like, subscribe, for free to watch any of my other videos. However else you want to do, thanks.